Welcome back, ECHL fans, to another edition of the ECHL Insider. So glad you could join us. So let's get right to some scores from last week's action. And if you like goals, then you will like watching the Wichita Thunder because they have been scoring a lot of them recently. The Thunder have put up 6 goals or more in 4 of their last 6 matchups. They are just an offensive powerhouse right now. And it was on display last week against the Night Monsters. They beat Tahoe 6-3 and 9-7 last week. That 9-7 game, if you blinked, then you missed like 3 goals because that was just a wild back and forth matchup between Wichita and Tahoe. Very exciting to see a high-scoring game like that. Also last week, the Florida Everblades and Indy Fuel met, and Indy experienced why the Florida Everblades are the 3-time defending Kelly Cup champions, as they were swept on home ice by the Everblades. The first 2 games started out kind of ugly with 7-3 and 6-3 losses to Florida. Then they kept it close in that third game with a 3-2 shootout loss, but the Everblades definitely on a roll right now in first place in the South Division. Also, the Trois-Rivières Lions look good right now. They've won 4 straight, and they dealt a 6-2 win to the Adirondack Thunder. Adirondack right now has lost 7 in a row. Hard to believe this Adirondack team is where they are. They're at the bottom of the North Division right now, a team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, number 1 in the North. They won that division. They were really just a special team, it felt like, in the ECHL last year, just going from barely making the playoffs to first place in the North, and now they're just back down again, bottom of their division, and things look kind of dim in Adirondack right now with 7-game losing streak right now if you're the Adirondack Thunder. Let's get you to the top 5 games of the week, a packed schedule in the ECHL as we have less than 2 months left of the regular season before the Kelly Cup playoffs, so let's get to it. And we will start with the Worcester Railers and South Carolina Stingrays, a Wednesday and Sunday schedule for these 2 teams. That's because Worcester has 2 games with Savannah between those 2 South Carolina matchups. So a travel-heavy schedule for Worcester. They were in Allen last week. They go to South Carolina Wednesday, then down to Savannah, then back up to South Carolina Sunday. So this will be a tired Railers team by the time they get back to South Carolina on Sunday afternoon, but should be really good matchups. Worcester in playoff position in the North Division. They are relieved of that as they have the longest playoff drought right now in the ECHL, so should be really good matchups. South Carolina definitely still looks strong in that South Division, so back-to-back 2 matchups this week for these 2 opponents, so it should be really good to see a non-division game. And at number 4, the Jacksonville Icemen and Orlando Solar Bears will go at it again on Thursday night. These 2 teams played twice last week, both ending in overtime wins for Jacksonville. So should be really good matchups. And the big storyline really this week was Jacksonville mutually decided to part ways with head coach Brandon Maschenter. So their assistant coach, Sean Tickle, is now the head coach, the interim head coach he was named. Very interesting in Jacksonville, parting ways with their head coach in a season where they're tied for second place in the South Division, well on their way to a playoff spot, and just a very interesting turn of events in Jacksonville, parting ways with their head coach. No reason was announced from Jacksonville why they decided to part ways with Brandon Maschenter, but it was said that the 2 parties decided to mutually part ways and that they wished Brandon Maschenter the best in his future endeavors. But that is all we were given from Jacksonville. Just a very odd turn of events for the Icemen as they now have their assistant coach, the interim coach to finish out the season, Sean Tickle. And at number 3, the Indy Fuel and Bloomington Bison, 3 games in 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Bloomington. This will be a very interesting 3-game series as these 2 teams are tied for the 4th and final playoff spot in the Central Division. So coming down the stretch, these 6 points or more this weekend will be incredibly important to the Fuel and Bison. So really excited to see these 2 teams go at it. 2 teams that have really played each other close all year. Bloomington in their first year in the ECHL, looking good. So should be really fun to see these two teams go at it down the stretch for that fourth and final playoff position in the Central. And at number 2, the Tulsa Oilers make their trip to the Wheeling Nailers West Banco Arena Friday and Saturday for the Oilers and Nailers. Should be really good. Oilers and Nailers, two of the best teams in the ECHL this year. Wheeling, though, kind of licking their wounds last week. They lost 3-1 to South Carolina and kind of got just outplayed physically in that game, it felt like. You'll see that big fight at the end of this episode. So should be really interesting. Wheeling, they got to bounce back, right? A loss to Greenville on Sunday, a loss to South Carolina on Saturday. How do they bounce back against a very good Oilers team coming into town on back-to-back nights? Should be really interesting to see how Tulsa plays. Also, they're in a three-way tie in the Mountain Division right now. So it should be really good. Two very good teams. And at number 1 this week, the Tahoe Night Monsters and Florida Everblades will go at it. 3 games in Estero, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. What a great matchup this will be. And what a great test for the Night Monsters. They're in a 3-way tie in the Mountain Division right now with Tulsa and Wichita for second place. So this will be very interesting. What a challenge, right? Florida, a 5-game win streak right now that we just talked about. They had a sweep over Indy last week, and now 3 games down in South Florida. Really one of the longest road trips in the whole ECHL, from State Line, Nevada, all the way across the east, all the way to the East Coast, really down south to Estero. What a 3-game set this will be. We know the environment in Estero is very difficult to play in. And Tahoe, their first season in the ECHL, they have been very impressive. They've shown that they can score a lot of goals, but this Florida team is just different, right? The way they have defended this year, the way they have been able to score goals when they've needed them and come back in games, has them at the first place team right now in the entire league, looking for 4 straight championships. This will be awesome to see. Just how does Tahoe handle this team? Tahoe is a very good, capable team to beat Florida. I think it will be a very interesting matchup to see Night Monsters and Everblades for the first time ever, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday night. We'll make sure now to check out our fight of the week. As we mentioned earlier, things got very physical Saturday night between the Nailers and Stingrays. So a big fight there that you're about to see. And after this video concludes, do us a favor, subscribe below. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback as well. And be sure to check out our episode next week as the playoff race starts to heat up around the ECHL.
It back, good tenacious forechecking there. Middendorf has it in the corner. Eric Middendorf protecting. Troy Murray is tangled up, and we got a scrap. It looks like we do. Murray is tangled up, and he jumps on top of his man. Troy Murray was tangled up with Corsia. Then Dakota Seaman jumped in there and tried to attack Murray from behind, but Murray took him down. And the crowd loves that. And we got more. Corsia has his bucket off. And he's being thrown up against the bench. Everybody's getting into it. Jacob Graves and Corsia are grabbing onto each other. Here they go to neutral ice. They're just grabbing each other.